If you are looking to make some changes in your life and business this year, then you are in the right place. I'm going to give you a framework for how to actually make change happen, how to make it stick. This is something that I live and breathe. I have been through multiple reinventions in my own life. I've gone from being a physiotherapist to an online business owner to an author and keynote speaker. That's the work that I do today. I travel the world. I speak at conferences to leaders about how to change with change. In fact, I've just arrived in my hotel room. Because I'm speaking at a leadership conference tomorrow. So this is top of mind. I thought I'd take some time out for us to have a chat, and let's just get straight into it. So most people really suck at changing. New Year's resolution stats show us that 91% of people fail at changing when they've set New Year's resolutions. It's quite interesting when you zoom in on it, because it's quite telling that it's the time of the year when our motivation is the highest. And so you would think that if your motivation is the highest, then you should be really good at changing off the back of that. But as it turns out, it doesn't work. That motivation fizzles out, and so does change. And so what that tells us is that we can't rely on motivation alone to drive change in our lives. In my opinion, what's more important is that you have a bit of a framework so you can think through change in a more considered and careful way, so you can be more intentional with how you execute that change. So I'm going to share with you 3 things that I think is really important for you to think about as part of this framework. The first thing that you need to understand is that there's an interplay between optimization and what I call power moves. So often we miss out one or the other. Now, when I started my keynote speaking career back in 2015, the very first topic I spoke about was accretion. And accretion was inspired by this quote from Thomas Edison that said, "Those who are successful in the end will be those whose success is the result of steady accretion." And I looked at this and I didn't quite understand the word accretion. I went to go read up more about it, and it said accretion is growth or increase through the gradual accumulation of additional layers. And so it made sense to me in my world that what he was speaking about is the accumulation of our daily decisions and actions, and how those things accumulate and ultimately give us the life that we have. An additional quote that inspired this was from Todd Henry in his book, Die Empty. And that quote said, "No one charts a course to mediocrity, yet it's a destination of choice. It's chosen in small ways over time. And these tiny, seemingly inconsequential decisions accumulate and eventually result in a state of crisis." What that says is that your inconsequential decisions and actions, those small actions that you don't think matter at all, they accumulate, and they either will give you a great life or maybe a terrible life, a mediocre life. So I became really bought into the idea of accretion, of accumulating these daily habits and these rituals and these small things so that they can give me the life that I want. And of course, since 2015, all the way back then, habit culture has really become a thing. Atomic Habits, I think, is a big part of what drove this movement. In fact, Atomic Habits came out in 2018. It is still a bestseller now in 2026. In fact, in 2025, it was number 2 on the nonfiction bestseller list for the entire year. So we are firmly bought into habit culture. We believe that you are your habits. And I want to be quite clear. I believe that to be true. But I just think it's an incomplete picture, that if you want to make change, you can't always optimize your way into change. You can't always focus on 1% better. You can't always focus on consistency to help you drive certain changes. There's a missing piece, and that missing piece is that we also have to make power moves, meaning we have to take certain actions and make certain decisions that are outside of what we usually do, that opens up new possibilities and new realities to us. And these 2 actions then play together, that a power move is something that opens up new realities, but then accretion or habits is then how you push it forward. So for example, if you decide to go to the gym, that's a power move. That opens up new realities, like your health could improve vastly. It could take you in many different directions. You might end up starting at the gym, but then it turns into high rocks, and then you start doing competitions. Who knows where it takes you? But that's the power move, and then it gets pushed further through your consistency and through your optimization. The problem is that we often become quite complacent in our discipline, in our rituals, in our habits. And so as a result, we find comfort in them. We aren't optimizing them the way we should. And what then might happen is that you look back on your year and you realize You did all the right things, but you didn't get the results that you wanted. And so my call to action for you here is, yes, be disciplined. Yes, focus on your rituals and your habits, but also make power moves. Find new and different things to do, things that might require a bit of courage, things that will push you outside of what you usually do, things that are maybe vastly different from your typical day, your typical way of making decisions, your typical actions that you might take. Because those moves are the moves that open up new potential pathways in your life. So that's the first part of the framework, is understand the interplay between power moves and accretion. The second part of this framework ties in with power moves in a way. And it says, rather make errors of action than errors of omission. I heard this first from Sean Perry from the My First Million podcast. And essentially all this says is rather take action and make a mistake so you can learn from it and do something new than do nothing. Like that is ultimately the biggest mistake that you can make, is to do nothing. Often we wait until we can do the thing perfectly, but that's not really the aim of taking action. The aim of taking action is to have something that you can work with, something that you can improve. This is true of any endeavor in life, is that the moment you've taken action, you've done the thing, now you have something that you've created that can become better. But when you've done nothing, you don't have anything that you can improve on. And I think many of us are also feeling the pressure of a world that is changing very quickly. And we are feeling left behind in many ways. And what I want to tell you is, even in those instances, it's better to be in the pool splashing around than to be outside of it. Like, you don't have to worry about being a good swimmer. Just be in the pool. Because the further you fall behind, the harder it is to catch up, the harder it is to get back into the game. So my call to action on this is just be in the game. Like, rather make errors of action, rather have something that you can iterate on than do nothing. And then the third part of this framework is that we have to talk about your environment and how you will set up your environment in such a way that it can support you. Research has shown many times that the way that your environment is structured really will influence your behaviors and even your thinking in substantial ways. So this could be many things. You know, for example, if you are going on a diet, then you might want to remove certain foods from your house to make sure that you aren't tempted to eat them. That's a way of using your environment to your benefit. For many creators, for example, they create setups where they can just push one button and start recording, because they realize that if they have to set up the lights every single time and the camera every single time, then it becomes very cumbersome and they might end up not recording because they've created too much friction. And that ultimately is the aim of using your environment to your benefit, is that you want to structure it in such a way where it creates friction for the things that you don't want in your life, but it removes friction for the things you do want. So it adds friction by, if you take things out of the house that you want to usually eat, but now you don't have access to it, you've added friction to that process. If you have taken out your gym clothes the night before and put your shoes ready for gym so that when you get up in the morning, you can just put it on and go, you've removed friction for an activity that you actually want to see in your life. So you need to think about, how do I change the environment to support the changes that I'm trying to make? Because I promise you, you can have the best of intentions, the best of motivation. You are going to go through periods where your willpower dips, where you want to revert back to old patterns. And the thing that's going to pull you back into old patterns and habits and rituals the quickest is being in the same old environment that supports those old habits, rituals, and systems. So the last thing that I might just add here is that the clients that I work with when I'm doing coaching, where I see the most amount of change, are the clients who approach change with an openness and a willingness to try. The more you are willing to treat your life as an experiment, the better things become for you. The more you start enjoying the process of change, because you realize that it's just an ongoing game that we are playing. And you get to try things and you get to iterate on it. And you won't always get it right. You won't always succeed. But the important thing is that you keep going and you keep trying to create a new identity. You keep trying to build a better environment. You keep trying to improve those habits that are meaningful and that actually lead your life somewhere, and that you are intentional about making those power moves, making those strategic bets in your life. So I hope that helps, and I'll see you again on the next video.